Yes, I now see why President Trump wanted Joe Biden drug tested. After Biden's performance last night, a complete 180 from his babbling, confused Joe moments on the campaign trail, I believe he had to be on some kind of performance-enhancing drugs. There is no other way to explain the complete turnaround. This may explain why the Biden campaign refused to agree to drug tests. So here is my call. For the second and third debates, the president must demand drug tests and don't give up on it. Because if Joe Biden is using mental performance enhancers, as I expect he may be, the public deserves to know. Now turning to my other major assessment of last night, Chris Wallace lived up to expectations. Well, my expectations that he would be malicious in his intent and devious in his ways to swing the debate in Joe Biden's favor. While many in the mainstream media criticize Wallace for, quote, losing control, I actually believe he did everything he wanted to do, all the while tricking the public into thinking the two candidates had taken over. His questions were explosive in nature, written to spur WWE-style responses. Wallace didn't just needle the president, he set him up for failure while loading Joe up with ammunition. Chris Wallace has the gall to insert the race card. He did it by bringing up that totally debunked fake news story about Charlottesville again.
The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to...
Unbelievable. This idea that the president is a racist is total bogus. It is a hit job pushed by the left. Wallace knows this, yet he continued Wallace's lasting legacy of this debate. It is demanding someone who has denounced racism and white supremacy over and over again to somehow denounce it again. It is a nasty below-the-belt move with the sole goal of giving post-debate left-wingers fake news red meat.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared to specifically
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Unbelievable. Demanding that is below the belt, as I said. As you can imagine, thanks to Fox News' Chris Wallace, the left exploited. Often the sound bites and post-debate reaction have more impact than the debate does itself. Wallace knows this, and every move he made last night was in an effort to supply the post-debate leftist predators with a roadmap to bash Trump, and they delivered.
David Axelrod, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen a president of the United States completely lacking in shame. I mean, just shameless and obesely immoral.
Well, isn't that rich? The most intellectually corrupt network on air today, CNN, with one of the most biased so-called news anchors on American television, calling the president obesely immoral when all CNN and Anderson Cooper do is exploit their power to push one party, the Democrats, to call themselves journalists, I would say lacks in shame and is obesely immoral.
Joe Biden is continually able to talk about the Charlottesville hoax, take a fragment of a quote, the media will run with it as though it's the gospel, and pretend that it's true. And anyone who's reasonable, anyone who watches the entire thing, understands that not only did he disclaim before that,
were you proud of your dad's performance tonight, Don Jr.?
I'm always proud of his performance. I think he's fighting hard for the American people.
Thank you, Don. And we were proud of your dad's performance as well. Gayle King wanted to shut you down. It's typical. Again, Wallace led Joe on a dog leash and then bit Trump for him so the likes of Gayle Kings can go on the attack. And when Joe Biden was being legitimately interrogated by the president over Biden's suspicious ability to enrich his family through the power of his office of the vice presidency, when the president was specifically asking about a $3.5 million payment from the mayor of Moscow's wife to Hunter Biden, Joe's son, Wallace conveniently changes the subject.
I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
$3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow.
Let's talk about
not true.
Gentlemen,
that report is totally discredited.
Mitt
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Climate change. I bet you would, Joe. You don't want to talk about your son loading his pockets off of your position of power. Look, the real evidence that the Bidens are crooked, that a possible future president has enriched himself and his family through elected office, and all Chris Wallace wants to talk about is climate change? Give me a break. The sad reality is we cannot whine about this. We can't cry. It is the reality of what the president and all conservatives face from a hostile media.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.